Welcome to the Experience Gap, the insight shop to the rescue, where we turn customer nightmares into teachable moments for businesses. Each week, we bring you real stories of service breakdowns, highlight the moments that matter, and equip businesses with strategies to delight their customers. I'm Kate Complin, the owner of the Insight Shop. I created this podcast to give customers a voice, to share their stories and frustrations, in hopes that companies would take notice, listen, and take action, as customers are your most important assets. Joining me today is Julie Strohfus, VP Retail Financial Services with Centris Federal Credit Union. Julie, it's great to have you on my podcast.
Good morning, Kate. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to talk about this today.
So, Julie, tell the audience about your recent experience when your home Wi Fi went out and how you had to be at the mercy of your internet company to get it fixed. What fell short, what happened, and how did it impact you?
Yeah, I'd love to share the story. And the story actually took place a couple years ago. I really had to go back and remember exactly what happened, but obviously it stuck out to me because you said, when was a horrible customer service experience? And I'm like, I remember this. I won't name any company names or anything, but the Wi-Fi at my house went out. And man, when it goes out, I mean, it affects everything in your house anymore today. What I had noticed is in the neighborhood, the power company had been digging and doing some construction. So I correlated the two, that probably maybe somebody hit a line or something. But so I went ahead and went online to the Wi-Fi, the internet provider company, and started with their chat bot, which was the automatic bot that I could talk back and forth to. And it recognized my account and who I was, and figured that out. And I told it I didn't have any Wi-Fi. And of course, then it walked me through how to reset my router, which I had already done. So we went through all of that process, and that didn't work. So then I got transferred to a live chat agent at that point. The live chat agent troubleshooted some more, but then determined that I needed to have a service call come out and that it was going to cost me $149. And I thought, wow, like it's not even like my fault. And why $149 for somebody to come out and fix the service that you provide to me? So I was a little thrown off on that, and not exactly excited about having to pay that. But
Right.
then she offered me sign up for a $10 per month service. So if this whenever this happens, then it's covered. And I thought, okay, so $10 a month or $149. And then I was catching back that this isn't my fault. I shouldn't be having to pay for this. So she ended up saying, well, actually, if you sign up for the $10, then after we get it fixed, you can just cancel it and then you don't have to pay anymore. And so really you only pay the $10. And so I was like, okay, so the employee just told me how to work their system, in a sense. So then that really made me question, like, wait a minute, who am I dealing business with that the employee is telling the customer how to work the system? Either way, my hands were tied. I needed my Wi-Fi fixed, so I was being forced to pay something that wasn't my fault, and potentially billing the power company whose fault it was. It ended up being the power company cut the Wi-Fi line, and the Wi-Fi company fixed it, so it wasn't anything that I had done wrong. What gets better though is she schedules the service. I make sure I'm working from home that day, and the time comes for the service appointment and nobody shows up. So then I get back online about 20, 30 minutes after they didn't show up, and they say, oh, well, somebody's scheduled to come today, so they'll be there. Well, at the end of the day, unfortunately, nobody came and showed up. I communicated once again with the company, and only to be told that, well, there was never even an appointment that day. So frustration again. And again, this is several days after the Wi-Fi went out. So I'm operating for multiple days without Wi-Fi, using my hotspot to operate for a company-wide, a Wise for working. So I scheduled another appointment, and the same thing happened again. Yes, where they did not show up. I was just so like, what is happening? I don't understand. I had to get to a live agent and talking on the phone with somebody because I was over the chat. Like, somebody explain to me what's happening here, because I'm using my own time and I'm getting promised things that are not getting delivered. And that was a frustrating point too, was even getting to a live agent, and being able to talk to somebody on the phone was quite the endeavor. I had to push back several times to talk to somebody. And then when I finally did talk to somebody, and I think this is what is really important for companies that are offering chat and phone resolution, is
Mhm.
I had to re-explain everything. There was no omni-channel presence between the chat bot, the chat agent, and then the actual phone agent. And so I had to re-explain everything and go through all of that rigmarole again when I finally did get people on the phone to help me. So it was very, very frustrating. Needless to say, I did eventually get my Wi-Fi fixed. I did sign up for the $10 and canceled it right away, so I never had to pay it. You know, the pain points I think was not being able to talk to a human. When I needed to talk to somebody, it was impossible to actually get transferred to that human.
Right.
You really had to push back. I would recommend for companies to really consider, if somebody is not wanting to chat, get that person to a live agent and really meet the customer where the customer wants to do business. I could probably continue on with the story of how frustrating it was, but really it's just the technology and using omni-channel. The other thing is the cold transfer. If your channels don't allow the omni channel to go
Right.
back and forth and tell each employee what's happened,
Mhm.
then make it a culture within your company to make sure that you are warm transferring each other, because that's not only a good practice for employee to employee, but then it
Right.
becomes a great experience for your customers so they don't have to re-explain everything that they've been through at this point in time when they're already escalated in frustration. So that's kind of my story around it. What questions do you have for me, Kate?
Well, thinking about that whole story, and you did explain with, the omni-channel and making sure that the customer can use the channel of choice that works best for them, but based on their situation. Also, you mentioned costs. Like, why do you have to pay for something that's not your problem? And because
Hmm.
they are a service provider and you're paying for their service, then you as a customer expects that based on paying for the service that they would fix any issues that are coming your way. And also, it seems to me that if your internet is down, they should know that immediately and they should be reaching out to you to say, hey, we see your service is down. We're on top of it. We're going to figure out what the problem is versus
Yeah,
having all these problems put onto you, such as you're having to
yeah,
call and let them know. They're wanting you to pay for a service
right.
you're already paying for. They're making you use a bot, then a live chat, and making it very difficult to get to a human. And so there's a lot of things that the internet companies should be thinking about. If you had to do this experience all over again, what should have that experience looked like for you to make it seamless and painless for you as their customer?
Well, definitely, as a company, look at your processes. And if your employee doesn't believe in it and you know your employees are helping customers work around systems, then I would question what your process is. I think being asked to pay something up front for when they hadn't even diagnosed what the problem was the first really sour taste I had in my mouth that I was frustrated with. If it had been something that we were digging to plant new gardens and stuff like that, and we hit the line on our own, obviously, then that would have been my fault. Not assuming it's the customer. Then just meeting me where I'm at. And I needed to talk to somebody and I wanted to exit out of the chat because it was just going back and forth. So that would probably been meeting me where I'm at and also just looking at the process of charging the customer when it's not really even their issue to begin with.
Right. And I always find it so interesting, and this is true regardless of who's on the podcast. When you have a bad experience, how long it sticks with you. You had mentioned a couple of years ago you had this experience, and yet today you're still being angered and frustrated by it. And, that is definitely not what companies want to leave their customers feeling.
Right. And I also find it interesting because I live in the country, and so my options are not, I don't have a lot of options to switch companies because some would say, why don't you just switch companies? And a lot of people don't have options, even living in urban areas, to have multiple different Wi-Fi providers and stuff. So I'm kind of stuck with who I have. So I'm at their mercy.
I'll leave you with this. According to ACSI 2024 telecom study, reliability and handling outages were top drivers of satisfaction, which means when internet companies do poorly here, it heavily drives dissatisfaction. ACSI and JD Power reported that call center interactions are the lowest scoring element of customer experience. Common complaints are around long hold times, being transferred repeatedly, scripted, unhelpful responses, difficulty resolving billing disputes, or technical issues, which, Julie, you definitely had some issues as it related to their call center. In summary, the biggest drivers of internet dissatisfaction are price value concerns, inconsistent service reliability, poor customer support, hidden fees, promotions, and unmet speed expectations. So thank you, Julie, for sharing your story about your internet experience. And thanks to our listeners for tuning into the Experience Gap, the Insight Shop to the rescue, helping businesses turn frustrations into delight, one experience at a time.
Thank you, Kate.